Well, you talked about how your worst purchase ever was you gave your friend $600,000 to produce Anita Baker's album.
Yep.
And your total return off that investment was zero.
Zero.
Okay, so how did this thing come together?
Which one?
The Anita Baker thing.
Well, when I was a kid, Otis used to, the tennis coach, it started at Dorsey High School. You know, I was poor. I probably was one of the poorest kids on the tennis team. And I was a little guy too. So the tennis coach, Coach Larry Smith, used to teach Otis Smith how to play tennis, Johnny the Canner, a bunch of little young rich kids. He taught them. And he needed somebody to hit balls with him. So he would take me with him and I would hit with the kids and they would pay me, $20 for hitting with their kids. And with this one particular guy, Otis Smith, he would not only give me $20, but he started buying me tennis shoes and rackets, and he would take me home from practice, and drop me off in a convertible Rolls Royce. So I had an affection for him and his kids. Well, one day, I'm doing really well now, probably worth a few $1 million in South Central LA, still living in South Central, and I'm worth a couple $1 million. I had a crew, maybe 20, 30 guys. I wanted to just go and be by myself. And I'd heard there was a tennis tournament going on in Santa Monica Park where the pros was going to be there, and I was just going to go out and watch some tennis that day by myself. And so when I pulled up, I'm sitting on the bench, and then I look up, there's little Otis playing number 2 at UCLA. But he's in a pro tournament, and he's playing against the number 1 guy from Stanford University. And they got a good match going on, tough. They start arguing. So it looks like to me it's about to be a fight. Otis is the only black on UCLA team. The only person that's supporting Otis was his dad. I'm not gonna let nobody jump on Otis. That ain't finna happen. Not on my watch. So what I do, pick up my phone. I said, hey, some white guys out here at Santa Monica Park, they finna jump on me. I need some help right now. So my guys got from LA to Santa Monica in about 10 minutes. Probably was doing wheelies on the motorcycles trying to get out there. So I heard the motorcycles screeching. About that time, the match ended. As soon as the match ended, the guy from Stanford told Big Otis, the father, that I'm gonna kick your ass. And that's what he did. He walked over, socked him in the eye. At that time, I saw my cousin Bear jumping the fence. And they looked at me, and I told them, I gave them the nod to take care of it. And they whooped everybody on Stanford team that day. I went down, broke the fight up. I walked out the hero. Everybody thought me for breaking it up and thought I was a good guy. So then Otis still didn't know who I was because he ain't seen me since I was like 16 years old. Now I got hair on my face. I'm like 21, 22, hair on my face. So he don't know who I was. But then Coach Smith walked up, and I wasn't going to tell him that I did that for him. That was just like, I owed you that, for all the stuff you done for me over the years. So then Coach Smith walked up, and Coach Smith saw what was going on, so him and Otis started talking, and then Otis started talking to him about the music business. So I'm standing back, just kind of like listening to the conversation, and then Coach Smith said, oh, you should have asked Rick for the money. And then he turned, he said, Rick? He said, little Rick. You don't remember little Rick that used to play with little Otis? And he said, oh, yeah. He said, Rick probably the one took care of your ass out here today. And he said, man, I couldn't get my crew out here, man. I would have. So I said, oh, don't worry about it, man. He said, man, I'm going to take you out for dinner. So we go out for dinner, and he take me down to his office. His office was over, I don't know if you remember the Red Onion on Wilshire Boulevard. His office was over, Beverly Glen Music was over the Red Onion, and he take me in the office. He got Bobby Platinum Records with Bobby Womack, Johnny Taylor, Rick James. He found Rick James for Motown. He was the vice president of Motown too at one time. Matter of fact, he's the first guy that was the vice president of Motown and CBS at the same time. He was getting a check from both companies. So he showed me all this stuff, and I'm messing with hip hop already. I'm finna do some hip hop stuff. So I got a couple hip hop artists. I got standing apartment buildings, and you know, we producing them. I'm talking to DJ Pooh. So I'm really thinking about doing hip hop. So he started telling me about this singer he got that he wanted to produce that sung like a mockingbird. And now I'm debating, should I stop doing hip hop and go with him, or should I stick with hip hop? Then he take me around Berry Gordy, Dick Griffey, and all these guys, and I'm looking at their studios and records, and I'm like, shit, I'm going with the guys with the track records. Fuck this hip hop shit. And then they told me hip hop was a fad. And this was the time Russell Simmons didn't have no money then. This was the time when Russell Simmons was running around with Run DMC at World on Wheels, and I just didn't see hip hop having no money. You know, it wasn't the way it is right now. But that's how I got started with him, and then all of them told me that I should get the money to Otis instead of doing the hip hop album. So, and I really believe that had I not listened to them, I would have probably been the king of hip hop.
So you gave him $600,000 in cash, which is an insane amount of money to produce one album. I mean, Michael Jackson had like $1 million budget. So you're talking about Anita Baker needed $600,000?
That's what he got from me. I didn't know what it took to produce an album. I never produced an album.
Right. That's an insane amount of money.
Especially for the 80s.
Right. I mean, that $600,000 today is probably what, maybe 2-3 million?
Or more.
Or more.
But DJ Pooh was talking about he needed $200,000 to produce one. So it wasn't, it didn't seem like, to me, it was totally, I totally knew nothing about the music industry. You know, you're talking about a guy that was totally novice to the music industry. So I didn't really know what it cost to produce them. But I'll tell you that I was fascinated with what Otis and them had done and their accomplishments.
Okay, so you give him $600,000, what, in cash?
Yeah.
Was there a contract?
No, he wanted to give me half of Beverly Glen Music, but I didn't want to put my name on it because I felt that if something ever happened, it would interfere with the company. But they begged me to quit selling drugs. All of them asked me to quit selling drugs. They was like, man, if you quit selling drugs, the way you work, your work ethic, your determination, you gonna kill this music industry. But my thinking was, if I quit selling drugs, how y'all gonna get money from me?
Okay, you give them $600,000 in cash. They go and allegedly work on this album.
Yep.
Does that album ever come out?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, she had multiple albums.
Her first album. This was
her first album?
I think it's The Songstress.
Okay, so you put $600,000 into this album. The album comes out. How does that first album do?
Terrific.
Let's take a look. Let's look up this album. What's the name of the album?
I think it's The Songstress. That's her first album, I believe it's The Songstress.
Hold on 1 sec.
I knew it went gold.
It's a little fuzzy in terms of how it did, because this came out in '83 and it got reissued in 1991. And
yeah, that's probably after the lawsuit. Man, I went to prison. We sued her and I think it was Epic Records, because she jumped the label. Something happened where Patrick Moulton took her to Epic Records and got her a deal with them. So we sued, but the suit was settled out of court while I was in prison. And my girlfriend, who was going to court every day, for the lawsuit, she stopped going to court, so I never knew how much they settled the case for.
Okay, so I'm looking this up as you're talking. So originally, the album came out on Beverly Glen. And when it first came out, it actually didn't do very well commercially. It was like a moderate R&B success, because I actually looked it up. It went to 138 on the Billboard 200. So it's really, really low down in terms of the albums of that time. And it didn't have a CD release because it was independent at the time and CDs weren't only coming out on major label albums. So I guess they re-signed to Elektra and it got reissued in 1991. And then it sold between 92 and 2007. It sold about 300,000 copies. So, you know, it made some money. But the money that you put in, how do they tell you you're getting nothing?
I went to jail. She jumped the label. I went to jail. She jumped the label and I went to jail.
Aha.
They settled while I was in jail. They settled the case while I was in jail. So I never know how much money. I never knew how much money they gave Otis, and it was done sealed. You know, there's no record about how much they gave Beverly Glenn Music for that record. And then Patrick Moulton was signed to Beverly Glenn Music as a producer, so it made the case even tougher for them to do the thing. Because she did her next album. Patrick did her next album with them as well, and Patrick. From what I understand, Patrick took her to Electric or whoever it was that she signed with.
Right, Elektra. Right. Okay, and since you don't have a contract, you only have a limited amount of things you could do.
Yeah, there was really nothing I could do. And I was in prison.
Right. So it's not like you could even show up at the office and...
Yeah, and when I got out of prison, he died about 2 months after I got out of prison.
If you were to count how much money people ripped off from you in terms of the businesses, the properties, these types of investments and so forth, how much would it be?
Millions.
Millions.
5, 10. If you count cocaine too.
Yeah.
I probably got ripped off for more cocaine than I did anything else.
Well, we talked about this in our early interviews. You said initially, yeah, some people would rip you off and stuff like that, but in general, you wouldn't really trip. So if they ripped you off, you just wouldn't do business with them. You wouldn't try to retaliate or anything else like that.
Well, my theory was this here. Like, I would probably give away a kilo of cocaine almost every day to people. You know, 2 ounces here, 5 ounces there, 10 ounces of this guy. And my theory was that if I give out enough, if I start enough people, one guy would pay for all of the people that beat me. I would start making enough money off of him. If I got one good guy, I would make enough money off of him to take care of what all those other people beat me out of.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's one thing to get ripped off for cocaine, but it's another thing to, you know, invest $600,000 into a legitimate business,
No, it's
and
the
then
same
that's
thing.
gone.
It was the same thing with me. Cocaine and money was no different. Because if I got cocaine, I'm going to trade for money. If I get money, I'm going to trade for cocaine.
Gotcha.
So they didn't matter which one it was.